3:37 ورودی فرحزاده پایین یه ساختمون مسکونی زده شده. ساعت الان
CBN's Kelly Wright is in Washington, D.C. CBN's Raj Nair with us as well. And I want to bring in Lieutenant Colonel retired Jonathan Cornicus, former IDF spokesperson and now senior fellow at FDD, co-founder of Bottom Line Media. And, you know, let's start with you, Jonathan. We've got obviously a lot going on overnight. We talked last night. What's the latest you can bring to us right now?
Yeah, well, hello, and almost Shabbat Shalom from Israel. A so far quiet Israel, and that is not to be taken for granted. I think Israel is bracing for an Iranian response. We don't know how strong and how lethal it will be, but Israel is definitely on high alert and readiness for that to happen. That is the directive given to Israelis by the military and by the political echelon. As we are speaking, Israeli jets continue to strike military targets with very high level of precision all throughout Iran. The eastern, northern, southern, central, and western parts of Iran are targeted systematically by the Israeli Air Force, aided by updated intelligence from agents on the ground, and of course, pre-assembled and assessed intelligence that Israel had ready. So far, we know of very good battle damage assessment. We know that the enrichment facility in Natanz, which was very important for the weapons program, not for the civilian part, but for weapons development, has been taken out of commission and most likely totally destroyed, which is good news. And we know of virtually the entire supreme command of the Iranian defense establishment, more than 20 flag officers, 2, 3, and 4-star generals that are no longer going to be directing terrorist activities or any other type of activities in the region or in Iran. Very significant. And Israel continues to operate. Now, what this means is that Iranian skies are open and exposed. The Iranians understand that they are exposed, and I think that the dilemma that they now have, the Iranian regime, is whether to cut their losses or to escalate the situation. Cutting their losses would mean to basically allow Israel to continue to systematically dismantle Iran's nuclear military program, to hit it from the air and perhaps from the ground as well, without doing anything significant to trying to disrupt that. If the Iranians choose that, then I think Israel will stop at that and won't continue to strike other targets. However, if Iran chooses to escalate the situation, which they can and are entitled to, they have been attacked by Israel and they can retaliate. But if they choose to do so, either by striking Israel with lots of ballistic missiles or perhaps by striking other countries in the region, then I think we will see a dramatic development where Israel will move on from only military and nuclear sites to regime sites and targets, and perhaps even national infrastructure, including oil and gas infrastructure, refineries, pipelines, and perhaps ports. That is, I think, where we are now, and that's a very crucial moment, and the ball is in the Iranian court.
Jonathan, this is Kelly Wright. I'm here at the White House, and as you are probably aware, the president is currently meeting with his National Security Council, and they're discussing the Israeli offensive against Iran. Tell me, based on your knowledge, what you think the president is likely discussing with his national security team, given the fact that he's already spoken with Bibi Netanyahu and, of course, the ambassador to the United States from Israel. What do you think is going on inside this meeting right now?
Well, my guess would be that the topic is, how is the United States, as the leader of the free world and the most dominant and important force for good in the world, how is the United States going to leverage the Israeli successful attack on Iran and then turn it into a strategic diplomatic achievement? How are we going to get the Iranians to agree to dismantle the nuclear program and to stop trying to achieve nuclear weapons? I think that will be the focus. I think that's the tone and the gist of communications coming out of the White House, I think that's excellent. That would serve American purposes. It would serve regional purposes. And I hope, following up on my last statement, I hope that the Iranians will be wise enough to take that. If their national pride, their hurt ego won't let them do that, then I think they will be exposing themselves to a lot of additional challenges. And to be frank, really what is at stake here in the future is the ability of the Iranian regime to continue to oppress the Iranian people. I've gotten so many messages and so many calls from Iranian expatriates who live all around the world, in Europe and in the US and Canada, really feeling very enlightened and hopeful that this is the beginning of the end of that tyrannical regime that has been holding the Iranian people hostage and oppressing them ever since 1979. So there's that component as well. This isn't only about nuclear weapons. This is really about Iran and its regime, and it could go that way. But I think that what the American administration wants is to try to wrap this up and turn this into a strategic diplomatic win.
And
Jonathan,
if I may, one follow-up with my colleagues real quickly. One follow-up, Jonathan. As you know, the president has already put on Truth Social, making a statement that he, for 2 months, had tried to get Iran to the table to negotiate a deal. That did not happen. Now we have this, and the president stating on Truth Social that he thinks it's high time for Iran to get to that table to negotiate, or it could be far worse than what they've already experienced. To that end, what would be your message to the Iranian regime?
Take the deal. It's the best you're going to get. You have a president who is progress and peace oriented. This is not a warmongering president. He wants peace and he wants a good deal, good for the Iranian people and good for the world. That will prevent the regime from having a weapon. And I think that's the best possible outcome they can wish for. If they're stupid and if they don't take it, and usually the Iranians are quite smart and cunning, and if they're smart, then they take it, and that kind of wraps up the event here. If they don't, that can open a Pandora's box of challenges for the future of this regime. And I suggest, parts of me urges the Iranians to be smart. Another part of me says, go for it, and let's say where this road leads to.
I just want to interject before your next question, guys. But to that point here, minutes before heading into the Situation Room, this is according to an Axios report not too long ago, for a strategy session on Iran, President Trump told Axios he believes Israel's massive strike likely improved the chances of a U.S.-Iran nuclear agreement. So that information just coming out today. But go ahead.
Well, Jonathan, my question to you is this. You could make the argument this was maybe the most incredible intelligence operation in decades, at least. And a lot of our friends are asking, how do they pull this off? I actually just spoke with someone, a retired member of the IDF, and I was trying to prod him to give me some information. He's like, all this is classified. But he did kind of spill a couple beans, nothing too much. But how did Israel pull this off? This isn't just a couple bombs dropping from the air. This is stuff of movies. How did Israel pull this off?
I think this will go down in military history as something that other countries will learn from and seek to emulate. I think, you reap what you sow. When you invest resources, when you have excellent people, and that is the key, excellent, high quality and motivated and creative people, and you give them clear guidance, what they need to achieve, and you allow it to happen, then you get tremendous results. We saw it with the Beeper operation against Hezbollah, which was a turning point in the war locally for Israel that really took the wind out of Hezbollah's sails and really changed the war. And by the way, Hezbollah today, quiet as a rug. Nothing, no rockets, no UAVs, and they are uncharacteristically quiet, and their only statement has been don't call us and don't call on us because we are busy with other things, which is a tremendous strategic setback for the Iranians. But Mossad, over the years, and this is not weeks and not months, this is years of investing in infrastructure, in agents, in a logistic support system. This is having a network on the ground, both to collect intelligence and then, of course, have the combat capabilities deployed in theater, whether it's drones, precision-guided missiles, explosives, or other things that will be revealed soon. And the Mossad very specially released a movie of its operatives inside Iran, preparing and managing the early stage of an attack. But this really is about investing in it for a long period of time. And of course, the other part of there's two other additional parts that are important, very important. Having an air force with extremely capable pilots, with excellent planes. And here's an opportunity for me as an Israeli, again, to acknowledge US tech, US weapons, US weapon systems. I think Israel has the benefit of using those systems and using them well, but the F-35 and the F-15s and other platforms are excellent. And here they are again, combat proven against Iranian air defenses of Russian origin. That's the second thing. And third thing, I think would be a strategic deception or something of that matter, where Israel, and I believe together with the United States, was able to lull the Iranian leadership into a false sense of security, and that the next big event happening was nuclear negotiations over the weekend and not an impending strike on all of Iran, its nuclear and military facilities.
Jonathan, just following up on Raj's question, I thought I asked Chuck Holton what he thought of the operation so far. He said epic, just like the beepers, but on a much larger scale and a wider scale. You should be proud of the IDF in so many ways. What is your analysis so far of maybe how much of the nuclear facilities have been destroyed, and can they recover?
Yeah, we're at early stages. I've heard a few assessments from the IDF. We're at early stages. The BDA is that progress has been made. I spoke about Natanz, but there are reports of almost all of the known nuclear sites, or known in the public, that have been hit all across Iran, eastern, southern, western, and central Iran. There's no official number, as in percentage yet, but what I understand from Air Force officers is that we are in the early stages. BDA is positive and it's good in terms of the targets that have been struck. But as we all know, there are hardened targets that are buried deeply underground that need special ordnance or other creative measures in order to get to. And I think that is the stage that we're in. Without revealing anything that I shouldn't, I think that Israel is applying a lot of creativity and flexibility here in how it's operating. And I think that the Iranians understand that they shouldn't anticipate only one type of attack from one certain location, but that Israel is doing lots of things in the entire battle space, all of the dimensions of the battle space. And I'll leave it at that. And I think that in a couple of days, I think we'll have better BDA. But so far, the progress is good. For me as an Israeli, super important. All of our pilots are safe. They're coming home after the sorties. And I am extremely grateful for that, and that they're able to execute their missions and get back home.
I wanted to expand a little bit on what you were talking about with Iran and their decision-making process and their mentality. Because on the one hand, you get the sense that these are sort of in the realm, a lot of these leaders, the mullahs, they're sort of in the realm of these suicidal jihadists that are on a mission from God in their mind, and they want to destroy Israel, wipe them off the map, all the things we've seen, in the past them say. But what level, you talk about them being smart, like on the scale, which one of maybe some pragmatism here of, self-preservation, or suicidal sort of radical Islamic jihadists, when you put those two things on the scale? Because these days, quite frankly, if you find yourself on a baseball card of Israel's most wanted, your clock is ticking at this point. Like you look at the Hamas leaders, the next guy gets promoted up. It's like the last thing you'd want is for your Facebook, hey, look who got promoted, because guess what? You just signed your death certificate. And so now we're seeing that in Iran too, with these precision strikes that you talked about. They clearly have demonstrated, Israel has, that they can pick you right out of your living room And, there's, like Raj was saying, incredible operations, smuggling explosives and timing all this, coordinating it, and this comes on the heel of really creative attacks like Operation Grim Reaper that we saw. I mean, this is, at what point does pragmatism, and can pragmatism outweigh sort of the radical ideologies that so many of these mullahs have?
So my assessment of the Iranians, and there are better experts of the Iranian defense establishment and the Iranian regime than me. Mark Dubovitz from FDD is one of them, but I can think of others. But my assessment would be that, the Iranians are fanatics, no doubt, but they are pragmatists, and they are calculating, cunning, disciplined. They usually have strategic patience and a good ability to plan and strategize and then execute their strategies. I think we've seen since October 7, it's been quite a magnificent downfall for the Iranians. It's been one defeat after another. Hamas, one Iranian proxy, attacked Israel on October the 7th. Hezbollah followed suit. And now these two organizations are but a pale shadow of what they were before. Without combat capabilities. We've seen the Iranians lose Syria. The last standing Iranian proxy of relevance are the Houthis in Yemen, and they are losing steam as well because we have hit their logistic facilities, and the US has dealt them a few serious blows as well. But when it comes to decision making, I think the Iranians are cunning, disciplined, and usually excellent at making decisions. But, once someone is surprised, and there's been lots of books and analysis written about, local versus systemic surprise, I think what Israel was able to achieve was a systemic surprise here of the Iranian entire system. And different people respond differently to a totally unknown territory and a situation. And now we'll have to see how good the Iranians are to respond when it's not them in the driving seat.
Jonathan, in response to that, here's what we're seeing so far out of Iran. We're seeing that some several hundred Iranians have actually gone to the streets of Tehran and chanting death to Israel. That is not a good response in the viewpoint of many people living in the West saying, wait a minute, you just got attacked. Your regime is being dismantled from outside. And yet the Iranian regime has put people out on the streets to say death to Israel, reminding Israel and reminding the United States of America just how tenuous and fluid this situation is. Given that, what about those people underground in Iran who are tired of the oppression and repression from this regime and really want change? In other words, Israel can attack externally, but internally, there has to be a move to actually bring down the regime to get to a place called peace.
Yeah, we're unfortunately not there yet. I think Israel is currently focusing on nuclear and military targets. Regime targets are, I'd say that they're in the chamber and they could come to the fore, but we're not there quite yet. I agree with you totally that change, like in life and many other things, real change only comes from within. And for there to be real change in Iran, it has to come from within, from the brave Iranian people that will fight their way out of the oppression of the Islamist regime. And that may happen in the future. Now, protesters out on the streets or marching out on the street and screaming death to Israel, that's not a new thing in Iran, sadly. But I think that's a pretty knee-jerk natural response from them. But it's interesting to see that in the official communications of the supreme leader, he issued, threats that Israel would face a severe punishment, or the Zionist regime, as they refer to us, but he didn't declare war. And I think that's indicative of their understanding of how bad the situation is for them, even though they have been humiliated. In Middle Eastern standards, this is super humiliating. Even though they've been humiliated, even though they have not been able to retaliate against Israel in any meaningful way, they are not declaring war, and they're kind of maybe dressing it down a little bit. And I think that's interesting and indicative really of the intentions of the Iranians.
Hey, Jonathan, I got to ask you a question that I asked you last night to explain why this matters so much to the world, particularly people here in the United States who may not understand the gravity of this situation and how much of a threat Iran has been to the Western world, because it is a seed, a hotbed of terrorist activity, training terrorism, and sending them out around the world. It's something that the United States has to be cognizant of all the time, very proactive. We have to be vigilant because they only need one chance to strike America, and we could see things go awry here in terms of terrorist activities. Explain it once again so that people really comprehend why what Israel is doing is really the tip of the spear, the first line of defense for freedom, not only for Israel, but for America.
Yeah, I think Senator Cotton articulated it very well. He said clearly he stands with Israel, and he sees that Israel is doing the work for the West. Israel is the first line of defense of Western civilization against what I believe is barbarism and extremism with very lethal and genocidal intentions, and that is the Iranian regime. And Israel is operating in order to defend itself, but indirectly, Israel is doing Europe and the West a tremendous service. The Iranians today already have missiles that can cover southern and eastern parts of Europe, all of North Africa, and southwestern Russia, and of course towards the east as well, Pakistan and India. They were developing nuclear weapons, and now Israel is putting a stop to that. And I think that is an excellent service in preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons. And without being, cynical, I think Israel should have some kind of recognition from entities around the world who deal with preventing proliferation, because Israel has now single-handedly prevented nuclear weapons from three crazy tyrants in the Middle East, from Iraq in 1981, from Syria in 2007, and hopefully, God willing, from the Iranians in 2025. And that is a service to the world. A lot of people don't like Israel. A lot of people, for some reason, love to criticize Israel and single it out and shame it and believe in allegations. That is unfortunate, but Israel will continue to do what is right, what is necessary to defend itself, and it also serves the world.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel, retired Jonathan Conricus, former IDF spokesperson, now senior fellow at FDD, co-founder Bottom Line Media. Appreciate your time as always, sir.